People who fantasized about a city or country, like New York City or Japan, and then actually took a leap of faith to move there. How has your opinion changed since? I did a year in France as part of a study abroad program. My main motivation was to improve my language skills. I didn't really glamorize France or have preconceived notions about it. I loved it and it was one of the highlights of my life. However, I think a lot of things contributed to that. I lived with a family and another American student who was part of my program. That other student is one of my best friends to this day, almost 30 years later. She really helped mitigate any homesickness. My host family was incredible. They were warm, loving, generous and had children within a couple of years of my age who, while they weren't best friends with us, were also warm and welcoming. They also opened their doors to my extended family on several occasions, which they had no obligation to do. And did I mention that they had an amazing, full-floor apartment in the 16th arrondissement too? I knew I was going to be there for a finite time, which made the difficult things, the culture shock, the language challenges, the endless bureaucracy, the griefs, etc., all much easier to deal with. I loved living there for a year, not so sure I'd want to be there in a permanent or semi-permanent basis. I lived abroad for years before ending up in France, and for some reason this country is really hard, not just for me but every expat/immigrant I know. I think a big reason is we Anglo-Saxons tend to glamorize France before coming here: free healthcare, paid vacation, good wine, etc. On the other hand, we don't expect the culture to be as different as it is, so we get double culture shock when we realize the system we glamorized is not that great and complicated as flip, and the culture is not only incredibly different but also very conformist and difficult to integrate into. Add on the language issues. Though friends who arrived with fluent French still had difficult times settling in, low salaries, a reserved and chronically depressed population, the spirit of criticism, direct negative feedback, and combative communication, and it's no wonder the expats have a hard time adjusting. It's also incredibly hard to make French friends. The French meet their friends for life by the time they are 5, and most social circles are not accepting new applications. If you do make a friend, it will take years to develop the relationship into someone who can be considered un vrai ami. En bref, France is exhausting and disappointing. If this post sounds negative, it's just because I am finally integrating. Edited to add, I'm not in Paris. Not a different country, but for me it was Honolulu, Hawaii. I went there a lot in high school and romanticized the heck out of it. I thought it was the most magical place in the world because of the amazing weather and beaches. I'm from Wisconsin. I decided to go to college there to study marine biology. Freshman year was the hardest year of my life. I realized Hawaii was just like any other place and wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Now I'm a senior and I've stopped putting Hawaii on a pedestal, which actually made it easier to live there. I found a great group of friends and now I'm glad I took that leap of faith. Seattle, Washington. Spent my first 30 years living up and down the eastern seaboard from Pennsylvania to Georgia. I was in grad school in South Carolina and inexplicably Seattle just popped in my head one day, no trigger or anything. For the last 6 months of school, 2003, it just consumed me, sight unseen. I needed to be there. So that's what I did. Got my degree, packed up my car with no job, place to live or contacts and drove to Seattle. It could very well be a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it was everything I wanted it to be. The city has changed quite a bit with the Amazon explosion, but I'm glad I got to live some old Seattle. There's still plenty of treasure to be mined. Sure, the luster is gone, but I have a family now and still love to explore the city with my daughter. All my old haunts are gone, but the fun now is finding new haunts. It's what we make of it. Los Angeles, the city where dreams come true. Growing up in a small rural city in SoCal, I would dream of being in a place of tall buildings, bustling energy, and all-night excitement. I moved here 10 years ago and it is much different than expected. Expectation. I'd see celebrities everywhere. Reality. They are everywhere. But mostly just want to be left alone and aren't that exciting in person. Also, I get diarrhea of the mouth and have never said anything good. Exception. Janice Dickinson once sang happy birthday to my husband in a very breathy Marilyn Monroe way. Expectation. Everyone is working on something major. Reality. Everyone is working on something that they think is major. Your Uber driver, the homeless guy down the street, your landlord and your boss. Everyone wants to talk about or recruit you for their next big thing and can pay in exposure. Exception. I do see a lot of people I know on TV and that's cool, but I also know that they are also just as skint as I have been. Expectation. Anything can happen at any time. Reality. Terrible things happen all the time. Waiting at a crosswalk while a guy next to me pulls down his pants and starts pooping on the sidewalk. Dodging a psychotic weirdo swinging a 2x4 without skipping a beat. I have deleted the Citizen app because of too many alerts in my neighborhood. Exception. I have lucked into gigs that I was in no way prepared or worked for. Expectation. It's expensive. Reality. It's really flipping expensive. Exception. Few to none. Sometimes I get free drinks. Expectation. It's full of fake people. Reality. It's full of people trying to make rent. Some of those people are fake and still trying to make rent. Exception. There's a strong undercurrent of working class people who just want to work, go home, watch The Office and eat a homemade meal. LA is not as bad as people warn it is, but it's definitely not all Beverly Hills. Even Beverly Hills isn't as good as Beverly Hills. It's dirty, it's hectic, it's gentrifying fast. But it's something different than home at least. Everybody in LA thinks they're the next big thing. There are a lot of really misplaced egos. I lived in West Hollywood for years. After 6 years I had never learned my across the hall neighbor's name. Saw her nearly every day and literally no conversation. Getting out of the city proper is better, but still has its issues. It's ungodly hot in some areas, beach cities are insanely expensive, and mountains are very isolated. But, you can go skiing and surfing in the same day, which is crazy. Edit, and the celebrity thing is weird. Everyone goes through that situation where you're like, I know this person. I know them from somewhere. Did I go to school with them? No. Did we work together? No. Are they in my building? No. They're on a major sitcom every Thursday night at 8 p.m. on Channel 4 and that's why they look so familiar. It was Finland for me. Rather weird country to obsess about, but I started learning the language in high school and fell in love with the culture. Went there for an exchange and was shocked at how close to paradise it was. Beautiful nature, friendly and helpful people, good quality food and more humane pace of life. It helped that I lived with a wonderful host family in a small town. The people you meet are a huge part of your experience in a place. Best part was getting to learn more Finnish. TLDR, Finland was exactly what I fantasized it would be. Not as popular but Greece. My maternal grandparents are Greek. It's a big loud friendly group and had been my entire life. I had a several month-long gap before grad school and a great aunt willing to house me so I moved to Patras. The first few weeks were wonderful. I did all the tourist things, then I realized how forced all of it was. You can't just ever have a friend over, it has to be a major production. The food was wonderful but every contractor or small business I interacted with took it at a point of pride to tack on added fees or try to scam me. I was stolen from multiple times. The older people, particularly the men, had no personal boundaries at all and their wives would hand wave off anything. Everything public that wasn't intended for tourists was falling to pieces. It was just very sad considering how proud I had been of my Greek roots until then. Hey, Greek here. I'm sorry you had such a bad experience. It's really strange though considering that Patras is the city with one of the biggest ratio of college students/residents in Greece. Most young people have a blast there. Mind if I ask when did you visit and whether you hanged out with locals? Regarding your point about contractors/small businesses, unfortunately this is true, especially in less touristy places such as Patras. People are trying to rip off foreigners all the time. Next time you visit Greece and think someone overcharges you, threaten them, you'll call the police. This will, usually, stop them. I also agree with your point that everything public that isn't intended for tourists is falling to pieces. This is mostly true for all small mid-cities in Greece. Other than that, I believe we're a friendly bunch of people, not all of course, who will go out of our way to help/show around someone visiting our country. Hope you have a better experience visiting us next time. I was obsessed with Japan when I was in high school and my mum sent me there for an exchange year. At the time Japan was known as a country with advanced technology and I had read that the taxis had doors that opened for the passenger. I thought it would be something like the Back to the Future/Tesla Model X doors. The biggest disappointment was that it was just a lever the driver pulls and it's an ordinary car. I had also read up a lot about a culture of perfection where even stray leaves were removed from gardens, meals were perfectly balanced to the seasons, people were modest and crime was low. As a 16-year-old schoolgirl I was molested twice walking home, my wallet was stolen, my host family preferred eating McDonald's, they had televisions running in every room of their house every waking hour and I was made fun of for reading books. I was supposed to be there for a year, but was so homesick I left 3 months early. To be fair, a lot of that was because of my host family, we were pretty poorly matched. I later went to work in Hokkaido when I finished uni and had a great time there as the people are a lot more relaxed. I also really liked my school and particularly my tea ceremony teacher who was an amazingly talented and kind lady. I now work for a Japanese company and my colleagues and boss are great. Portland, Oregon. It was great for a while when the rent was cheap and the house I moved into was still populated by friends. After 3 years, the last of which all my friends had moved away, I realized that Portland is a really fun city, but also that cities in and of themselves are not for me, and that they are only bearable, for me, with friends. It was a great learning experience, if you can call having your car stolen and broken into all the time learning. At the initial cost, $300 a month for a room, it was fantastic. Working 4 days a week and paying all my rent with tips. Golden way to end one's 20s. It's a great city to visit, and the suburbs aren't bad at all. I just got jaded and raw from living downtown. I'd gladly live there again if I had friends around and didn't have to park on the street. You can only convince yourself that a place is awesome for so long when you're by yourself and stepping over hobo poo and broken auto glass constantly. Like and subscribe for more videos.